On New Year's Day 2008, 24-year-old Meredith Emerson began a hike to the peak of Blood Mountain in Georgia, with her dog Ella by her side. The next day, when Meredith failed to return home, a manhunt began, which would bring down one of America's most terrifying serial killers, the National Forest Killer. Welcome to Vanishing Trails. Today, we explore the chilling case of Meredith Emerson and the man who became known as the National Park Forest Killer, Gary Michael Hilton. Meredith Emerson was a 24-year-old with a zest for life. Born in Charleston, South Carolina, and raised in Longmont, Colorado, Meredith had an adventurous spirit. She was known for her love of the outdoors and her loyalty to her dog, Ella, who she was training to become a physical therapy dog. After graduating from the University of Georgia, Meredith remained in Georgia, where she became a beloved part of her community. Meredith's love for nature often took her to the trails of northern Georgia, especially the challenging paths of the Appalachian Trail. On January 1st, 2008, Meredith set out to hike Blood Mountain, one of the highest peaks in Georgia, a place she had visited many times before. It was supposed to be a peaceful start to the new year, a chance to reflect and enjoy the solitude of the mountains. Gary Michael Hilton was a 61-year-old drifter with a dark past. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, Hilton had a troubled life. He served in the U.S. Army in the early 1960s, but his life after the military was marked by instability, violence, and mental illness. Hilton was known to live out of his van, drifting from one national park to another, seemingly homeless but always on the move. His life was a blend of manipulation, violence, and cruelty, and by the time he encountered Meredith, Hilton had already become a seasoned predator. He targeted those who were vulnerable, using the vastness and isolation of national parks to his advantage. In the wilderness, far from the eyes of civilization, Hilton was free to act out his dark fantasies. On that fateful New Year's Day, Meredith unknowingly crossed paths with Gary Hilton on the trail on Blood Mountain. Hilton was hunting, but not for wildlife. He was hunting for a victim. When he saw Meredith hiking along with Ella, he saw his chance. Meredith, a skilled hiker and martial artist, was no easy target. But Hilton was prepared. He approached her under the guise of a fellow hiker, perhaps even engaging in friendly conversation before attacking. Hilton struck Meredith, knocking her to the ground, and quickly restrained her with zip ties. Ella, loyal and protective, tried to defend her owner, but Hilton managed to subdue them both. Hilton then forced Meredith off the trail and into the dense forest. Over the next 4 days, Hilton held Meredith captive in his van, moving her from location to location to avoid detection. During this time, Meredith showed incredible courage and resourcefulness. Hilton wanted access to Meredith's bank accounts. However, she repeatedly gave Hilton incorrect information about her bank accounts, buying precious time and hoping it would be noticed by authorities. Her bravery and quick thinking delayed Hilton's plans, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough to save her. As the days passed, Hilton grew increasingly paranoid and desperate. He knew that time was running out. He had already withdrawn money from Meredith's account, using the correct information she eventually provided under duress, and by then, the authorities were closing in. On January 4th, 2008, Hilton made the decision to end Meredith's life. In a remote area of the Dawson Forest Wildlife Management Area, Hilton brutally murdered Meredith, bludgeoning her with a car jack handle. After killing her, he attempted to cover up his crime by decapitating her body, a horrifying act intended to delay identification. Meredith's remains were discovered on January 7th, 2008. The news of her death sent shockwaves through the community. Meredith Emerson was more than just a victim. She was a beloved daughter, friend, and a beacon of kindness, whose light was extinguished far too soon. But Meredith Emerson wasn't Hilton's only victim. Further investigation revealed that Gary Hilton was responsible for a string of murders across the southeastern United States. One of his other known victims was Cheryl Dunlap, a 46-year-old nurse and Sunday school teacher from Crawfordville, Florida. Cheryl was last seen on December 1st, 2007, when she failed to show up for her Sunday school class. Her friends and family immediately knew something was wrong. Cheryl was a dependable and caring person who would never disappear without a word. A search was launched, but it wasn't until December 15th that her decapitated body was found in the Apalachicola National Forest, her head and hands removed in a gruesome attempt to hinder identification. Just like with Meredith, Hilton had withdrawn money from Cheryl's bank accounts, captured on surveillance cameras. His method was eerily similar, using the wilderness to conceal his crimes and his victims' identities. Cheryl's murder left a deep scar on her community, a place where she was known for her kindness and dedication to helping others. Another tragic case linked to Hilton is that of John and Irene Bryant, an elderly couple who disappeared while hiking in the Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina in October 2007. John, 80, and Irene, 84, were seasoned hikers who loved the outdoors. They had spent decades exploring trails together, always careful and well-prepared. But on October 21st, 2007, their hiking trip turned fatal. Hilton approached them in the woods, attacking Irene first and then John. Irene's body was found weeks later in the forest, while John's body was discovered months later in a remote area of Georgia. Just like in the other cases, Hilton used their ATM cards to withdraw money, leaving a trail of evidence. The brutal murder of John and Irene Bryant shocked everyone who knew them. Their deaths highlighted Hilton's ruthlessness. No one, not even an elderly couple, was safe from his predatory instincts. The Bryants were described as inseparable in life, and tragically, they remained together in death. Gary Michael Hilton's reign of terror finally came to an end after Meredith Emerson's murder. Surveillance footage from an ATM where Hilton attempted to withdraw money using Meredith's card was broadcast across the country. Tips flooded in, and Hilton was eventually arrested on January 4th, 2008, in DeKalb County, Georgia. At the time of his arrest, Hilton was still in possession of Meredith's belongings, including her loyal dog, Ella, who was thankfully unharmed, and returned to her family. Hilton was charged with Meredith Emerson's murder, and quickly confessed. His confession detailed a series of murders that spanned several states, each more brutal than the last. Hilton's crimes were shocking not only for their cruelty, but for the cold, calculated way in which he chose his victims. People who were alone, isolated, and vulnerable in the vast wilderness. In January 2008, Gary Hilton was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole for the murder of Meredith Emerson. However, his sentence did not bring closure to the families of his other victims. Hilton was later extradited to Florida, where he was convicted of Cheryl Dunlap's murder and sentenced to death. He also faced federal charges for the murders of John and Irene Bryant. Gary Hilton's crimes left a lasting impact on the communities and the families of his victims. The fear and horror of his actions reverberated far beyond the wilderness where his crimes took place. The outdoors should be a place of peace and refuge, but Hilton's crimes are a sobering reminder that danger can sometimes lurk in even the most serene environments. While justice has been served, the memory of those who were lost will always remain. Thank you for joining me today. Remember to subscribe to Vanishing Trails, and until next time, stay safe out there.